Smith, touchdown, Alabama!
Intercepted by Charles Woodson! Collins off the Heisman!
They will not catch Lamar Jackson!
35-40, he's on his way! Desmond Howard is going all the way! That is a Heisman Trophy winner!
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Hello Heisman from the Varsity Podcast Network, where we talk all things college football and, of course, the Heisman race. Jimmy, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Des, all good. How about you? Good weekend?
Fantastic weekend. Some great games. Got home safely, and pretty good weekend. No complaints. No complaints. Enjoyed Oxford.
Yeah, you know, the Grove, Hotty Toddy, and all
Yes,
that stuff,
sir.
right? Looks like an interesting place. I've never been there. I got to get there one day.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than the tailgate. But so,
Exactly.
all right. Before we get into the football, what do you got for music this morning?
Oh man, so I got a little Genesis now.
Oh, all right. Tonight's the night.
Tonight.
Love it. All right, that's from your vinyl collection. You inspired me. I went up into the attic and pulled out some of my old albums. This one's probably hard to see.
What you got for us, J-Ro?
All right, this is old school too. This is from the early 1970s. Bob Dylan with the band live recording Before the Flood, one of my absolute favorite albums of all time.
Okay.
It's just Dylan in a very, very different way. So it's always on a playlist or two of mine. But anyway.
Sweet, that's nice.
It's all good. So interesting week in college football, as it always is. But I got to tell you, it seems like a strange year, you know? I mean, at least where the Heisman's concerned, it doesn't seem like anybody's just stepped up and said, you know, this is mine to lose. I'm the man. A lot of really, really solid performances. So let's start, though, with one game that's coming up this week. And I know on College Game Day, I'm guessing this is where you guys are going to be, in Columbus, Michigan State, Ohio State. It's a game that's not only going to shed some light on the national playoff picture, not to mention the Big Ten, but I think it's also going to give us an indication of where we stand as far as the Heisman is concerned.
Yeah, man, on my way to Columbus, one of my favorite places to go in America, and it'll be two of my favorite fan bases there too, just cheering me on. So I'm excited about this trip. But Jimmy, the game should be a really, really good game, and you know it has some guys in there who their names might be on some Heisman ballots when this thing is all over. I mean, of course, we got Kenneth Walker III, Michigan State's tailback. You know, a few weeks ago, he really jumped over everybody in the Heisman race with that performance against Michigan, 5 touchdowns, almost 200 yards. But then that was followed up by, you know, a good game against Purdue on the road. But it was the first time that I saw him fumble this whole season. So didn't know if the pressure of the Heisman was getting to him. Now last week they played Maryland. Had a solid game, good numbers, but Maryland's like one of the worst rushing defenses in the conference. So
That hurts me to hear.
yeah. I'm sorry to give you that news, J-Ro. I'm sorry. But then listen, on the opposite side, you have C.J. Stroud.
Snap to Stroud. Back to throw. Stroud looks, cranks the arm, fires into the end zone for Wilson. Caught it for a score. What a great catch by Garrett Wilson as he angled his way around cornerback Dedrick Mackey to make a grab in the right corner of the end zone, 12-yard. TD pass from C.J. Stroud. The second time those two have hooked up for a score today, and it's 34-7 Ohio State.
You know, they were touting him as a Heisman candidate. Didn't really live up to the hype early on. Really struggled early. Finally, I guess, got into a groove and started to really just dissect defenses. I mean, they were just putting up almost 50 points a game. Now competition's getting a little stiffer. Going up against Michigan State, who, like I said, they took an L to Purdue. So now this is like a must-win situation for Sparty on the road. But J-Ro, I got to admit, I really like Trevion Henderson,
I know.
the running back.
Stroud gets the snap. Hands to Henderson, running on a left angle to the 50. He'll hit the Purdue 40. Down the left side of the 30. Henderson to the 20, to the 10. And into the end zone goes Henderson. with a touchdown run of over 50 yards, and Ohio State on that 57-yard scamper has increased their lead to 20-7 over the Boilermakers.
And I really do believe that had they realized what they had in him earlier, they probably wouldn't have lost that Oregon game, because they would have leaned on him like I've seen them do throughout this stretch since losing to Oregon. And he's a freshman, averaging like over 7 yards per carry. And, so you got 3 guys in this game whose names could possibly end up on a Heisman ballot when this is all said and done. So I think this is, not only is it as far as determining who's going to win the Big Ten, or who's going to at least go to the Big Ten championship game, but also who may be sent to New York.
You talk about it all the time, and we talk about it's not only about the numbers, it's about the eye test and the Heisman moment. And, it always comes down to it. You had your Heisman moment, coincidentally, against Ohio State. This is an opportunity when everybody's going to be watching. And if somebody has a good game, I think it's clear that they're going to elevate themselves. Meanwhile, so this is something that we haven't spent an awful lot of time talking about, and this is odd. I find this odd. The betting favorite, if you go to the betting sites, the betting favorite is still Bryce Young. It doesn't hurt that he plays for Alabama.
Not at all.
But he is having a hell of a year.
Here's a 1st and 10 from midfield for Alabama. Bryce waits, claps his hands. Play action fake and a throw wide open left side. Caught, and with his speed, nobody's going to catch Jamison Williams. Touchdown, Alabama, 50 yards.
33 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions, 3,000 yards, completing 71% of his passes. Is it finally time for you and I to say, okay, he's one of the couple of favorites?
He's a guy who came into the season just like C.J. Stroud of Ohio State. When you're the quarterback at Alabama, you're going to come into the season with a bunch of hype, and the expectation is going to be pretty high. And obviously another guy who's a first-year starter, but playing extremely well. They had the tough game on the road against the Aggies, the one they dropped. But outside of that, he's been really stellar. And he actually impressed me his first game against Miami. Against the Canes, he was just so poised, so accurate, had a great command of the offense. Really impressed with Bryce Young. We'll see what happens these final couple of games. They're going to take on Arkansas, who just won a pillow fight against LSU. So we'll see. But yeah, I guess he's the betting favorite right now. But the thing is, none of these guys have really come out and, like you said, planted that flag and, had that big moment. They all have really good numbers. Like you said, his numbers are very impressive. But I don't know. I still need to see a little bit more from all of these candidates, because it's just such a lackluster race at this point. J-Ro, listen, I spoke to many guys who are voters, and to the man, they've all said that if they had to put 3 names on the ballot right now, they would really, really struggle. And let me tell you, I'm having a problem now. Normally, we're like mid-November, right? Normally, I'm trying to figure out how am I going to cut down the list, because I may have 6 or 7 strong candidates. Now I'm trying to figure out how am I going to add anybody to this list or put them on this ballot, because I just don't have that strong feeling about any of these candidates.
All right. So one of the things that I find most amazing is if Bryce Young should go on to win the Heisman, and you think about this, he'd be the first quarterback from Alabama to ever win the Heisman. You're talking about a place that's produced guys like Teddy Stabler, Joe Namath. There have been some players to have come through there, so that'd be really something. All right. So, but as we said, nobody really has separated themselves yet. So I want to play a quick game with you here, okay? This game is why not, okay? So why not, if nobody's separated themselves yet, why not Will Rogers from Mississippi State?
2 receivers each way. Rogers gets a snap, throws in, so Polk is there, and he makes a leaping grab for a Mississippi State touchdown.
Wow, what a drive. You can't get hotter than Will Rogers and this offense has been since they came out of the locker room.
Completing 76% of his passes, 3,700 yards passing, and he brought Mississippi State back from 25 points down against Auburn last week. Had 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's now thrown for 300 yards or plus in 8 straight games. Why not, Will Rogers?
I'll tell you this. I believe that Mississippi State has about 4 losses on the season. And when you take that many L's during the season, I think voters and people who are paying attention, they start to pay less attention to what you're doing on the field, despite what your numbers may look like. And, I think that's just – had he been a guy who we were talking about leading up to the game last week against Auburn, then that would have been like a Heisman type game. Like, that's a Heisman type performance. If he was a guy who was like, man, we got this Will Rogers. He's probably one of our top 3 guys who we're looking at right now. He's having a strong season. And then he goes out there and he brings them back from 25 points down. And he throws 6 interceptions. Yeah. 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. J-Ro, that's okay, this guy just separated himself from the pack with that type of performance. But because, he's not a guy who was in the mix previously, then it's kind of hard for him to, to climb back or to climb into the race. But that was an impressive performance. And how demoralizing was that, though, for the Auburn Tigers?
You talk about the 4 losses for Mississippi State. To a certain degree, you think, well, then this guy's getting penalized because their defense isn't as strong as it could be. And it makes me think about baseball. I don't know if we've discussed this before, but I think it was 1987. Andre Dawson, the Hawk, won the National League Most Valuable Player Award playing for a Chicago Cubs team that finished in last place. So it can happen. It just doesn't happen in sports individual awards very often. All right, there's one guy that I definitely got to get to. It's about time. Tell me if you know this name out there. Bailey Zappe. That's right. Bailey Zappe of Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is 6-4. He leads the country in yards, almost 4,200 yards. It's crazy. 42 touchdowns. That leads the country as well. By the way, Western Kentucky, that's where Mike White from the Jets came from. Why not Bailey Zappe? He's having an extraordinary year.
I'll tell you what, and he really is. But you gave the record, and they have 4 L's, and they took 4 L's in a row. It's not like those losses are spread out throughout the season. Like, they took 4 losses in a row. And then once you do that, a month worth of losing games, then people aren't going to pay attention to you. Plus, he says Western Kentucky. Most voters probably couldn't even tell you what conference Western Kentucky belongs to. You know what I mean? Like, what conference is Western Kentucky? They wouldn't know it's Conference USA. So I think, he has those things against him. But, yeah, he's having a fantastic year, putting up some huge numbers. But, yeah, when you have like a month worth of taking L's, then it's going to remove you from that list.
All right, before we step aside, one of our favorite parts of the pod, that's where we get to hear from our viewers and listeners. And we'll start off with a question. Somebody wanting to know if you could pick one player, past or present, to play college football who didn't play college football, who would it be? Des, what do you think?
This may surprise you, but actually it would be Usain Bolt, because he was so fast. I would love to see defenses try to come up with schemes and game plans to try to contain the speed of Usain Bolt. Don't forget, he wasn't a small guy, too. He's a pretty tall guy, lanky, range. I don't know if he could catch. Now, we probably have to teach the man how to catch a football. After all, the brother is Jamaican, and, so football to them means soccer. You know what I mean? But right. I would love to see Usain Bolt. How about you, J-Ro? Who would you like to see?
Well, there's a couple of parallels when you talk about Usain Bolt, and I hadn't really thought about that. But remember the great hurdler Ronaldo Nehemiah went to the University of Maryland,
yes,
world-class hurdler. He played for the 49ers. Yep. But then, of course, the one that I think of right away, and I don't even know where he played college football. Of course, I'm going to hear about this. Is Bob Hayes, number 22, played for the Cowboys, won a Super Bowl and an Olympic gold medal, was the fastest man on earth, right?
The Bullet Bob Hayes, yep.
Right. Okay. So here is the guy, and this is probably the obvious answer because he wanted to play football. Talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
Is LeBron James?
Oh, yeah,
big Ohio
exactly.
State fan. But here's the guy that I just got to thinking about that I would have loved to have seen playing college football. Our friend Charles Barkley. Can you imagine the trash talk?
That's a great one.
Right?
And he loves football. Especially college football. I mean, he talks about Auburn all the time. So that would have been, I like that pick.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't think he's talking about Auburn football this week, but that's a whole
No,
other
it's not.
story.
I
All right.
got a great LeBron James story for you, too. He was an Akron St. V, and I know people, I'm from Cleveland, so people actually sent me, and I still think I have one. They sent me VHS tapes, a VHS tape of LeBron James playing high school football as a wide receiver. Say, hey, Desmond, I want you to look at this kid. What do you think of him as a wide out? I think I still got the VHS tape, too.
Wow.
Crazy.
I'll bet you he was pretty impressive.
He was, yeah. He was like a man amongst boys out there. Freakishly talented,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, still is. All right, another one of our fans out there writes in, and this is, if there ever was a loaded question, and I guess that's appropriate language when you consider the subject matter. What's with Texas football? Ouch. 5 losses in a row now.
Yeah.
Things are not good in Austin.
Exactly. Not much. That's what's good. And you're talking about Kansas. I mean, they just lost to Kansas. Like, that's probably an all-time low for the Longhorns. I mean, I would hate to see Matthew McConaughey this week. He's probably in a real pissy mood. You know what I mean? So, yeah, nothing much going on good in Austin right now.
All right, we'll end it with this one. One of our fans out there writes in to ask, what are the top 5 qualities that you look for when casting your Heisman vote? And it's funny. We just have to go back and remember what Danny said, and it's something that you and I have been saying, and I think that's the answer, right, Des?
100%, Jimmy. We don't have 5 qualities. The number one quality is a person who steps up on the biggest stage and has a moment, has a performance. You want to be a guy who starts to separate yourself by what you do on the biggest stage, and that's something that we all look for. You want to see that guy in that game do that thing.
Yeah, it's why the guy with the best stats doesn't always win the Heisman Trophy. Okay, if you've got questions, we encourage you to send them our way, and the way you do that is you go to Varsity's Instagram page. We look forward to hearing from you.
And that's it for this episode of Hello Heisman from the Varsity Podcast Network. This show is produced in partnership with Learfield and Blue Duck Media. I'm Desmond Howard.
And I'm Jimmy Roberts.
See ya.